What is up, guys? So today should be an exciting day. We are taking the Porsche down to its first event. Now, it's not a driving event, it's just a cars and coffee. It's still the first thing I'm actually taking it to besides the meet that was half a mile away from the shop. This is 10 miles away from my apartment here, so hopefully it should do fine. So I'm not too worried about it, but still a little bit apprehensive because most of the time when I've driven, you know, that amount of distance, but I've stayed within a mile or two of, you know, my shop or my garage or whatever. The car made it down here relatively uneventful. I had a small leak of coolant. It just started dripping once I got here, and I tightened my hose clamps down and it seemed to fix it. So I think I'm gonna head back now because everyone's heading out. It's pretty cleared out by now. This was all full a minute ago. But yeah, car made it totally fine. I had to stop and zip tie one thing. The clutch cable was melting on the exhaust again, so I had to zip tie it up. I probably need to undo it and reroute it somewhere so that it doesn't melt all the way through or break it or whatever, but car runs good. It's pretty exciting. Beautiful. So I just stopped on my way home. I was getting paranoid because I could smell something, but I stopped here and I think the smell was coming from a different car, so I think I'm all good. I'm actually I didn't take the highway on the way here. I took just like normal roads, so the speed limit was like 45. When you know, the fastest way is to take the highway, so I'm gonna take the highway on the way back, see how it does. I can always slow down to 55 or whatever and you know, do that. So let's see how she do. My front bumper fell off. I thought it was bolted on. It must have rattled itself loose. Doesn't seem too damaged. I think I came out pretty lucky. Damn, she looks good. I'm glad all these people are pulling over to make sure I'm okay. Just kidding, I don't really care. I wouldn't pull over for this hunk of shit either. Like a glove. Alright, the rest of the front end's all solid. Let's keep going. It's a lot of traffic. A lot of people staring at me. She's cruising though, staying cool. So nothing really happened on the way home besides my bumper flying off and some girl in my apartment complex gave me a really dirty look, but that's not too surprising. Alright, I'm back. It may or may not be a couple hours later because I may or may not have fallen asleep as soon as I got back home. But let's do a quick little damage report on our 20-mile journey. So This piece of the bumper came off. That's what flew off, and the bumper looks fine. I guess I didn't have it tightened down very tight, so the bolts rattled themselves loose, and when I hit a bump, it just bounced out. No big deal. I think you'll probably see it on the video, but it came unlodged, and then I started pulling over, and when I came off the road, it bounced out the rest of the way. So what else? Let's crawl under the car, because that's where the other issue I had was on the way there. So right here, the clutch cable, you can see there's a spot melted out of it because it was resting on the exhaust there. I'll probably need new cable eventually because it's melting. Well, it's melted. It's not melting anymore now because I zip tied it up. But when I do put a new one in there, I'll route it a different way. I might get a longer one so I can route it along this tube here instead of where it has to go through the exhaust. And that'll get rid of that. And then the hose, not this hose. Well, these ones are actually a little bit loose too, but the ones over there where it goes from the radiator hose to like the heater hose style, those were pretty loose and they were dripping once I got parked. A guy who was checking out my car was like, "Is that puddle under the car from you?" I'm like, "Shit, guess it is." But it cooled perfectly fine. It didn't drip very much. Just the pressure of it being warm, like, you know, the pressure built up in the cooling system caused it to push a little bit out of there. There's a real small puddle, so not worried about that at all. So I'm still not having any issues with the vehicle speed sensor, and I don't want to have any issues with it at all. So I figured we could go upstairs and I could talk about my plan for the vehicle speed sensor, how to address it, and what I'm going to do to keep it from giving me a 4,000 RPM rev limit. So look at that, nice and easy right upstairs. So I think I showed you guys earlier, in order to make a fake vehicle speed sensor. Alright, let me start over. Any modern Subaru, if you do a swap and keep the Subaru ECU, but you're running a different transmission that doesn't have a vehicle speed sensor, you have to somehow spoof the vehicle speed sensor input on the ECU. What a lot of Porsche, Volkswagen swap people do is there's a kit from a company that bolts onto the CV axle, and then you put a Hall effect sensor on there and it simulates a vehicle speed sensor. However, I'm running a I'm running a Subaru transmission that does not have a vehicle speed sensor in it, so I can't do that. Instead, I'm going to use this, which is a Arduino Pro Mini. Basically a prototyping development board. They're really cheap. They're like $2 on eBay, and you can write code for them and have them pretty much do whatever you want. So here's my line of code. It's so simple. So you don't have to put anything in the setup. It's only a loop. It's tone, so 10. That's the output that is going to output on here. It's going to output on pin number 10. And then it's going to randomly choose a frequency between 32 and 96 hertz with a 2000 millisecond delay in between them. And all that's going to do is tell the ECU that there is some sort of signal coming in, and it's relatively randomized. Apparently the Subaru ECUs, if they're not randomized, they sort of catch on to the pattern, and then eventually they'll still give you that 4,000 RPM rev limiter. So I'm gonna load this up on here, and then all I have to do is wire in a 12 volt or 5 volt source. 12 volts should work. I'll have to double check on that. I might have to put in a current limiting resistor in order to, I might have to put in some sort of resistor to limit the voltage in order to make it work on 5 volts, and then a ground, and then the output onto that vehicle speed sensor pin on the ECU, and I'll be done with it. I'll put it in a little like prototyping box so that it stays dry and everything. But that's a really cheap solution to a sort of pain in the ass problem that not a lot of people really know how to address very well. So that's going to be the end of the video today. Make sure to like it, subscribe, all the typical stuff. You know what to do. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.